Yeah, I would like to, send our condolences to the Siler family. One of the first people I met when I got here in school was Sonny Siler and his family, and obviously the obvious meaning that they've had to the University of Georgia and the UGA Dog Nation family. They've been incredible. So we're all mourning the loss of him, and just thoughts with his family during this tough time.
Questions?
Kirby, in terms of what you look for in the game, and I know you're out there to win the game first and foremost, that's the game plan, that's where you're at, but are there other things in a first game that you evaluate, just some staples or some structure you can give us just as far as what coaches look for games?
I think procedurally, you haven't had the play clock permanently on. You have it at practice, it's not the same. I think discipline for onsides and cadence, the little things that usually get you beat, turnovers. I mean, the first game's no different than the last game in terms of the things that will get you beat. But I do think first game jitters exist, and you want the players to be able to get comfortable and go out and cut loose and play and get the anxiety out of the way, get the first hit out of the way. And I want to play, our brand of football and play really disciplined and not have a lot of penalties and a lot of sloppy mistakes. Communication things that you just beat yourself or trying to avoid.
Kirby, a couple days into the week, what have Dejan and Kendall been able to do to this point in the week?
They've both done more. Dejan stayed in a black. Kendall's been out of a black. They both are, they look good. We're giving a lot of reps to a lot of other guys because we got other guys to get prepared for, but they've both been in Indy. They've both done drills. They both worked during the run periods and the pass periods, so I feel good about both of them.
Coach, at what point during camp or during the preseason leading up, do you kind of feel the sense that these guys are kind of tired of practicing against each other? It's time to play somebody else?
Well, with the way things are now, you could feel that way in spring, you could feel that way in the summer. We do so many glorified walkthroughs. We try to change it and break up the monotony, but I can't pinpoint a day per se because I think that you have to be willing to go against each other and not let it become monotony. And like I told everybody, I told them today, I said, that one rep of inside zone that you take today has to be the greatest rep of inside zone you've ever taken. That one stunt step you take as a D lineman has to be the best one you've ever taken. And repetition is the mother of all skill. And you've got to get a lot of reps to get good at it.
Yeah, this being Julian Humphrey's second year in the program, what have you seen from him in terms of how he's grown and how he's gotten better in approach this season?
Yeah, I think Fran's done a tremendous job with Julian. He's a fast guy that came in, kind of raw talent, had not played a lot of the techniques that we're teaching in terms of multiple coverages. He played a lot of man, and he's grown as a player. He's gotten tougher, he's gotten more physical. He still has not arrived. He still has moments that make you wonder what he's doing. Then he has wow moments. He's made some really good plays in camp, but he has to continue to play in and kind of buy into the process of getting better at that position, and he'll get better because he's talented.
Coach, when we spoke to Coach Shimmy, he talked about installing with volume, starting with volume with the defense. With young players, you talked about Julian maybe learning the playbook a little bit more. Is there ever a talent overweighs the knowledge of the playbook where we just put them out there, maybe simplify things?
Well, I think to simplify things, it takes away a little bit of our advantage, and we don't have to simplify things because we've got players with experience. We're good teachers. We had two freshmen last year that were talented enough and smart enough to walk out there and start, and a third by the end of the year with Jalen Walker. So between Michael, Jalen, and Malachi, we've proven that we can play with freshmen and have volume. So we don't look at it as we have to give up one to get the other. We're going to do all we can to help people have roles and learn and put the best people out there to give us a chance to win.
We'll have a chance to talk to Zion in a little bit. Just what kind of progress have you seen from him and the value of having a defensive lineman like him with the kind of experience he has?
Well, he creates a lot of value in the locker room. He's a lunch pail guy. He carries his lunch pail every day to work, and he gives you an honest day's work every day. He competes, he covers down, he's always one of the hardest guys. When they throw the ball, he breaks and covers down. So when you've been in this program as long as he is, there's a lot of work that he's done that we certainly appreciate as a staff, because he buys into the hard work.
Yeah, follow up on that, you got Zion, Trammell, all these guys that have played so much football. Just how unique is it having that many guys that have played much football as they have, and how valuable are they in terms of setting the standard for those younger guys like Kristen Miller, Jordan Hall, guys like that through fall camp?
Yeah, that's what they do. They set the standard, and we challenged them this week to set the standard for a game week of practice, and those guys do that. They set an example. They're able to carry the weight and show guys how it's supposed to be done, because they have a unique spot, because they've been part of a lot of success. So they carry the weight, and they show those guys how to practice and what to do to get better. And they've all kind of become products of that, because none of those guys were immediate success stories upon arrival. They kind of had to earn it.
Coach, have you determined yet, how big your roster will be for this day? I guess you're unlimited, right, on a game like this? Will you be 80 or 100? And then kind of on that, you have such a big wide receiver core, and it seems talented and deep. Where do you like to shave down to in terms of having a rotation of kind of regulars in there?
I don't know. I feel like we're thin at wide out. Everybody keeps talking about this wide receiver core, and I'm like, we are thin. We just don't have enough depth there. We don't have enough guys in our 2 deep to finish practice, and so it makes it tough. We got guys dinged up, guys injured, so it makes it a little bit harder. But I don't know that you have a rotation. I mean, the year LSU won the national championship, I think 95% of the snaps were 3 receivers, and there were 3 really good receivers. So you play the players that give you a chance to play. We have a bar, and we say this is winning football above it, and this is losing football below it. If you can play winning football, then we're going to give you opportunities and chances to play based on what you have shown us. And we got some guys that can play winning football. We probably got 6 or 7. We probably got 3 or 4 that are right on the line that aren't playing winning football yet, that we'll try to get ready. So that's the hope.
Overall dress out?
Overall dress out. We hadn't really talked. I mean, I can dress the entire roster if I want to. I mean, it's just going to be a matter of deciding how much room we have on the sideline. We'll have some other games that we have an opportunity to dress those guys for. We try to reward everybody by dressing at least one during the year. Typically, we do the guys that came to camp, because they've been through the most practices, and then try to get the guys that came out when school came later.
Kirby, you mentioned Trey Scott getting his start at UT Martin. Obviously had stops at North Carolina and Ole Miss briefly before he got here. What was it that attracted you to him, and how have you seen him grow and develop as a coach in his, 7 seasons now?
Well, the first thing that attracted me to him was Pete Jenkins, who is the father. All right, over there. The father of all D-line coaches. One of you should go do a special on Pete Jenkins, but he is. What's the right word? He is, I don't want to call him a dinosaur, but he is one of a kind. He has been through every SEC school, maybe but Georgia. He is the father of at least 120 defensive line coaches. Trey would tell you that he helped develop him, and when we needed a defensive line coach, we called Pete and said, Pete, give us somebody in your tree and tell us where the best young one is, and we want him to develop here at a really great university. And Pete talked about Trey, and I think Trey at the time had just gone to maybe to Ole Miss, and we hired him. But he had a background that started at UT Martin, like we all did, and he played back in the Division II Gulf South Conference days over in Arkansas, and I had some history there, so I had a lot of respect for the way Trey had worked his way up and earned it, and he's done nothing but the same here.
Kirby, I'm doing a story on the idea of halftime adjustments, and talked to a few coaches. I know that 2017, you had a couple games that kind of broke different ways at halftime, but what's been your experience with, is it kind of an overused term, or how much can you actually do?
Yeah, I would think it is an overused term. I think it's more important now than it's ever been with the advent of the offense. There's so much volume of offense out there that by half, you know, you feel like you have an understanding of where they're trying to attack you and what they're trying to do. So you obviously get more time to go in and adjust at halftime. Back in the days of, let's call it 2008, 2010, 2012, you know, it wasn't like that. There wasn't that same, there was a physicality to the game that's probably unseen now, from direct runs and people playing in a phone booth, and there was a little less adjusting you could do to that. You could tweak some things, but now there's alternatives, and there's a lot more offense out there. Every offensive play has 3 plays on it, so defenses have to find ways to be creative to create an advantage. And you know, I think there's a lot more strategy now. Some offenses hold things for the second half, some defenses hold things for the second half. And I've been always a big believer, if it's good enough to use it, you better use it in the first half, and not save it for the second. But we try to do a good job of doing that, and you know, sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But it has a lot to do with the players, not the adjustments.
Kirby, you mentioned about studying the All Blacks, and I think I heard you say about you grew up watching Julian and the Bulls. Have you looked at teams that have repeated in other sports to learn about some of the traits that help them succeed?
No, I have not. Not that I know of. I don't think that we have. We really haven't studied anybody that repeated. And All Blacks was more about being winningest organization. I don't know. I mean, I would assume if they're the winningest organization, they've probably repeated, but I don't even know if they have. Like I said, that's each and every year is independent of the previous, and there's nothing about the other two that's going to help us or hurt us in this season. It's completely independent, just as last year was, and we've kept it that way. We focused on this year. Our team is, I don't know, 80% new from the one 2 years ago, so it's a new group.
Kirby, over the offseason, we asked a lot about Chaz Chandler stepping up and young guys. I mean, where is George at as far as replacing Nolan? And I know Nolan was more than just a position. I understand the leadership and the volume he brought, but can you go a little bit more in depth in terms of some of the things you said you might do differently without a guy like Nolan over there to generate rush?
We're not doing a whole lot different. I mean, Nolan, God bless him, he was not as productive as you might make him seem. You know, a first-round pick would probably usually have more production than he had, but he was a really tough physical run player. He was great at knowing whether it was run pass. He sacrificed a lot of rushes to break the pocket and get quarterbacks out of there and try to create scrambles. So he did a lot of really good things, so we have to replace him. But he was not exactly just a huge sack producer, because he didn't have a lot of sacks as a junior, and this senior year, obviously, he got injured. So who's going to replace Nolan? Well, a group of people are. And when I say a group of people, it's by committee. We've got guys that go in on third down and give us similar rush that he does. We've got guys that play on first and second that give us similar run value that he gave us in terms of toughness and closing and scraping and effort and energy. And he was probably the most valuable special teams. You know, he made tackles on kickoff. He blocked a punt. So you don't replace him with one guy. You replace him with a lot of guys.
Kirby, Drew Camp, one of your former teammates in Athens area, and of your kids, I think grew up with his kids. One of his sons returns to play for UT Martin. Just kind of talk about your relationship with him, with Cal and his dad, and just their family in general.
Yeah, I remember Drew here as a player. He was certainly a really good player, and we're around the same age. I don't remember his son as well. I remember when his son was here locally and through and worked out and was kind of growing up, but got a lot of respect for their family, and looking forward to having them, you know, come to Sanford Stadium. I know it'll be special for them as a family to watch him, you know, play in that same stadium.
Coach, I'm curious to hear your stance on how you think this offense has kind of changed over the years. How has Georgia offense changed over the last 7 or 8 years?
Well, I mean, we've all talked about it before, but you start with Nick Chubb and Sony, and you go to George Pickens and Brock Bowers and Darnell and the guys we've had out there, Kieras. I mean, it's just kind of evolved over who we've been able to recruit. And I think that evolution is constant, and probably the biggest change is the spreading of the ball. And there's so many guys who'd come out of a game last year, and we'd have 7 people who got receptions, 8 people got receptions. I just don't think you find a lot of teams in the country that are able to spread the ball around to that many people. And sometimes you don't control that. You know, it's it's controlled by what the defense does, which that can be a good thing and that can be a bad thing. If defense is controlling where it goes, they're telling you where they want you to throw it. But that's usually the right decision. It's just if you have a guy that has to touch the ball, you got to try to find ways to do that as well. So I'm proud of the evolution of it and what they've done, but a lot of that has to do with who the coordinators were.
Yeah, Kirby, two guys that played big roles for you guys on defense last year, Kamari Lassiter, Shmuel Munder, been dealing with foot injuries. How they progressed this week and how are they looking in terms of what they might be able to do for you guys on Saturday?
Yeah, Smile's been dealing with a foot injury that was from the spring, and he's done a really good job of that. He's been practicing and looks great out there and has done everything in practice this week. And Kamari's looked good out there and done everything. He was dealing with a foot sprain, but he's practiced and done really well this week.
Another guy coming off a foot injury, Dan Jackson, a guy that just gives you experience and depth. How is he looking? Is he close to 100% and contributing on Saturdays?
Yeah, the foot injury's not. He's been great. He's had no issues with the foot. He's had a hamstring from early in camp, but he's practiced. I don't know if it was the last 4 days, 5 days. They all run together on me, but he's practiced since the last scrimmage. I know that he did low volume in the scrimmage, and he's picked up volume ever since, and he's taking all his reps right now.
I want to ask you about someone else on your staff, and Todd Hartley. When you had the opening on the staff, what sort of stood out about him and convinced you to bring him on?
Well, I had tried to hire Todd prior to that. I think after Coach Beamer left, I believe we tried to hire Todd at that time, but he was with Coach Rick, and he was at Miami, and he chose to stay. And then I had a second chance to hire him when we had another opening, and he chose to come home. I knew him when I got the job here. He stayed for a couple of weeks or maybe a month home with me, and I'd known Todd for a long time. I had a lot of respect for him, and he's very detail oriented. He's a get it done guy. He knows the questions to ask to get things done, and you give him an assignment, he does it really well, and he's got a bright future in coaching, and I'm certainly very thankful that we've got him on our team.
Time for 2 more questions?
Yeah, Coach, it seems like perennially y'all have 3 or 4 either current walk-ons or former walk-ons that are impacting your roster. I guess, is that commonplace in Power 5 football? And if not, what's been the key to success to finding impact players, basically, 3?
Our staff and our state is incredible. So our staff does great research. We leave no stone unturned. We don't just go recruit 5-star guys. We go to high schools and visit and try to find out the intangibles of good football players and if they have interest in coming in our organization, because your organization and culture is made up of just as many walk-ons as it is scholarship players. And I have a lot of respect for walk-ons and what they do. And I don't know relative to others because I don't have a way of researching that, Like when I look at a team's roster, I don't know who's a walk-on and who's not, so it's hard to identify that. I do know that we've had success nurturing those relationships and developing those players, and a lot of times they're your smartest, toughest, and they do exactly what they're coached to do, so you get good production out of them. And we're very blessed to be in a state where high school football's so good that you find guys that help you.
Coach, I know you're always proud of all your guys who want to play at the next level, but you find out a guy like Harris, makes the Titans a free agent, they get a little bit extra buzz.
Yeah, we announced that today in the team meeting right before practice. I got text, and Kier's texted me, and one of the guys at the Titans texted me, and the whole team went nuts, man. Kier's was just ecstatic, and I mean, who better deserves that than a guy that went through 2, 3, 4 injuries? He was on the leadership SEC committee and represented this university on every board you could be on, and stood up in front of the team and led, and just unbelievable leader, and had all the cards stacked against him, and he still overcame all that and made it on what is one of the toughest things to do in all sports, to make that 53-man roster, and he did. I'm really proud of him.
Thank you.
Thanks.